The metal door creaked open slowly. 2 guards stood outside the dark prison cell, holding heavy blasters. They looked nervous. No one liked coming near this cell. No one even wanted to speak about the creature locked inside. The creature. They called her a monster, but today, a new soldier was sent to guard her. His name was David Kane, a human from Earth. He stepped forward, calm and quiet. The guards looked at him like he was crazy. "You're really going in there alone?" one of them asked. David didn't answer. He just nodded and walked in. Inside it was cold and dark. The cell was made of thick glass and steel. Chains hung from the walls. The smell of blood, rust, and something strange filled the air. She sat in the corner, tall, strong. Her skin was dark purple, her hair long and silver. Sharp black claws rested on her knees. Her eyes glowed softly in the dark, like dying stars. She looked up at David. No words. Just silence. David didn't reach for his weapon. He just stood there watching her. "Your name?" he asked. The monster didn't speak. She just blinked slowly. "They say you tore through 5 alien soldiers like paper," David said. "They say you were born to kill." Still no reply. David took a step closer. The air felt heavy, like something was pressing on his chest. Fear whispered in the back of his mind, but he didn't move back. He didn't run. "Do you understand me?" he asked again. This time she spoke. Her voice was soft, broken. "I understand," she said. But no one ever asked before. David raised his eyebrow. Her words were perfect English. "You speak my language?" he asked. "I was trained to," she said, looking away. Before they changed me." "Who changed you?" She didn't answer. David looked around. No bed, no light. Just cold stone and iron. "You live like this?" he asked. "I don't live," she replied. "I survive." Her voice was full of sadness, not rage. Not hate, just pain. David sat down. On the floor, right outside the cell. "What's your name?" he asked again. She hesitated. "Lervela," she whispered. "That's not a monster's name," David said. Lervela looked at him again. For the first time, her eyes seemed less sharp, less wild. "I was not always a monster," she said. "They made me this way. To fight, to destroy. And when I broke free, they locked me here." David frowned. "Why did you break free?" he asked. She lifted one hand. It shook slightly. A long scar ran across her arm. "They used me. Then they feared me. I hurt people, but I was only trying to escape." David didn't speak. He just listened. For many minutes, silence filled the room again. Then she asked him something strange. "Are humans afraid of monsters?" David smiled a little. "Some are, but I've learned not all monsters are evil." Lervela tilted her head, confused. "You don't fear me?" "I should," David said honestly, "but I don't." She leaned forward slightly. The chains on her arms clinked softly. "You're different," she said. "Maybe," David replied. "Maybe I just see what others don't want to see." Suddenly, footsteps echoed down the hallway. A high-ranking alien officer appeared behind David. "What are you doing?" The officer barked. "You were told not to speak to her." David stood up, slowly. "She's not a mindless beast," David said calmly. "She talks, she remembers, she feels. She's a killer." The officer snapped. "She's a prisoner," David corrected. "One who's never had a trial, never had a voice." The officer stepped closer. "If she speaks again, she dies." Lervela stood behind the glass. Her glowing eyes narrowed. "I've already died once," she said quietly. "What more can they take?" The officer turned and walked away, angry. David looked back at Lervela. Her face was unreadable now. Calm, yet tired. He stepped closer again. "I'll come back tomorrow," he said. "Why?" she asked. "Because no one else will." Lervela stared at him. For a moment, her lips curved into the smallest smile. Just a flicker. Then it was gone. David turned and left the cell. But as the heavy door closed behind him, Lervala whispered to herself, "He sees me. Not the monster, but me." And for the first time in years, she didn't feel completely alone. The food tray lay untouched. But the silver chain in the corner was broken. David froze. He stood outside the cell, eyes locked on the glowing red warning light above the door. No sound, no movement inside. He had come back like he promised. But something was wrong. He tapped. "The security glass, Lervala?" he said softly. No answer. He tapped again, louder this time. Still nothing. David took a breath, entered the security code, and slowly stepped inside. The cell was dark as always, but colder. The kind of cold that made your bones stiff. The kind that warned, "Leave now." He glanced around the room carefully. The chains on the wall were still attached, except for one. It had been snapped clean. "Lervala?" he said again. Then he heard it, a soft rustle from the shadows. She was there. Curled in the farthest corner, her knees drawn to her chest, arms wrapped around herself like she was hiding from the world. David lowered himself slowly to the ground. "I brought food," he said gently. "Didn't know if you like human stuff, but—" "I'm not hungry," she said. Her voice was quieter than yesterday. David noticed something then. Her long sleeves were rolled up. And her arms were covered in scars. Long, deep old ones. Some healed wrong. Others looked like burns, symbols, marks. What are those?" David asked carefully. Lervala didn't answer. But she didn't pull her sleeves down either. David didn't push. He waited. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "They called it purification," she said. "Who did?" "My own people," she whispered. "They said I was born imperfect." David leaned in slightly, heart heavy. "They used me in trials," she said. "Tried to make me perfect, stronger, faster, better. They said pain would turn me into a weapon." Her hands shook. "And did it?" David asked softly. "Did it make you stronger?" "No," she said, staring blankly at the wall. "It made me hollow." David clenched his jaw. He couldn't imagine that kind of life, being hurt by the very ones meant to protect you. Raised not as a child, but as a tool. "You didn't deserve that," he said. "No one cared," she replied. "Until you." She turned her head and looked at him directly. "Why do you keep coming back?" she asked. "You're not afraid of me." "But you should be." David met her gaze. "I've seen fear," he said. "Real monsters don't cry alone in the dark." Lervala's eyes shimmered. "I killed people, David," she said. "More than I can count. My hands are stained. My mind is broken." David stayed silent for a moment. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled something out, a small, folded paper. He opened it and placed it gently on the floor. It was a picture, a photo of a child, his younger sister. "She was born deaf," David said. "People called her broken, weak. Even my parents gave up on her. But she fought harder than anyone." Lervala stared at the photo. "She died 3 years ago," David added, voice tight. "But she taught me something important. Broken doesn't mean worthless." Lervala's lips trembled. She touched one of her scars. David stood up and gently pushed the food tray toward her. "You're not alone anymore," he said. "Not if you don't want to be." He turned and walked toward the door. Just before he stepped out, she spoke again. "My real name isn't Lervala." David stopped. "I lied," she said. "It was the name they gave me when they turned me into this. My birth name was Vela." David smiled softly. "Vela," he repeated. "That's a beautiful name." She looked down at her hands, the chains, the tray of food. And for the first time in years, she picked up a spoon, far down the hallway. The alien officer who had warned David before now stood in the shadows. Watching, he whispered into his communicator. The human is bonding with the monster. Prepare the next phase. It started with a dream. David stood in a field of stars. No sound, no sky. Just her Vela standing barefoot in front of him, glowing faintly in the dark. Do you think I'm real? She asked, her voice soft like falling snow. Before he could answer, chains shot from the ground and wrapped around her body, dragging her back into the darkness. David woke up gasping for breath, and that's when he knew. He had to set her free. The next day, David stood outside her cell again. He brought no food this time, only silence. Vela looked at him through the glass, confused. Something happened, he said quietly. Vela tilted her head. What? David looked around, then leaned closer. I think they're going to kill you. Her eyes darkened. Why now? Because I care, he said. And they don't like that. Vela sat back, her chains rattling softly. Then go. Leave me before they punish you too. I'm not leaving, David said. I'm making a plan. Her eyes widened. What kind of plan? The kind where you walk out of here alive, he said. Vela stared at him, speechless. David took out a small map from his jacket, stolen from the base archives. He unfolded it on the floor, pressing it flat. There's a blind spot in the east hallway, he whispered. No cameras. No sensors. If I unlock your chains and guide you through the maintenance tunnel, we can reach the landing docks. Vela looked down at her hands. Even if I escape, where would I go? I can't live among your kind. Or mine. You'll be with me, David said simply. She looked up, her voice cracked. Why would you do this? He didn't answer right away. Then he said, because when I look at you, I don't see a monster. I see someone who is hurt and never healed. Vela's eyes glistened. You're risking your life for a broken stranger. David gave a half smile. No, I'm risking it for someone who still has a future. That night, David snuck into the control room. His hands shook as he typed override codes into the system. Cameras looped. Alarms went quiet. One wrong move, and he'd be branded a traitor forever. But he didn't care. He went back to her cell at midnight, the base sleeping under layers of cold steel. He entered her cell, holding a tool that could cut through alien energy cuffs. She stood still as he knelt before her. Are you sure? She asked, voice trembling. No, David said with a nervous laugh, but I've never been sure about anything in life. Until you. As he began cutting through the cuffs, she whispered something. If I lose control again, promise me you'll stop me. David looked up into her eyes. You won't lose control. The cuffs fell to the floor with a soft clang. For the first time in years, Vela was unchained. She touched her wrists. The skin was raw, but free. Let's go, David whispered. They moved fast through the base, quiet, careful. Vela followed him through the service hallways, her body tense, alert. Every sound made her flinch. David led her through the east tunnel, exactly like he planned. But just as they reached the last corridor, a red alarm light blinked on. Intruder alert. Cell block breach. David cursed it under his breath. They found out, Vela said. Keep moving, David yelled. Doors slammed shut behind them. Sirens echoed. Footsteps pounded the metal floors. Suddenly, 3 alien soldiers appeared at the hallway entrance. They aimed blasters. Stop right there. David stepped in front of Vela, shielding her. Let us go, he shouted. She hasn't hurt anyone. She's a weapon, one soldier growled. Not a person. Vela stepped forward slowly, eyes glowing. I am not what they made me, she said. I choose who I become now. One soldier opened fire, but Vela raised her hand and the energy bolt stopped midair. Frozen in time, David gasped. You still have powers? He whispered. Vela didn't answer. She simply turned and blasted a hole through the wall behind them. Move, she said. They both ran into the night past the walls, past the guards, past the fear dot as they disappeared into the dark wilderness. The officer from before watched them from a command tower. Eyes cold dot, he tapped his communicator. The monster has escaped with the human. A pause. Yes, sir. Begin the hunt. A full moon hung in the alien sky, too big, too close, like it was watching them. Vela's breath came in sharp gasps. Her feet were bare, her arms scratched by thorns. The forest around her was alive with glowing plants and whispering winds. Behind them, the dogs were coming, not real dogs, drones. Fast, silent, heartless machines that hunted heat and fear. David pulled her behind a thick tree trunk. His chest rose and fell like a drum. Sweat poured down his neck. We can't stop for long, he whispered. Vela looked at him. They won't stop either. He nodded dot, and they ran again dot. It had been 3 days since their escape from the base. They had crossed dead rivers, silent valleys, and shadowed woods. Vela's chains were gone, but freedom came with a price. They were now hunted by both humans and aliens. The humans called David a traitor. The aliens still wanted Vela as a weapon or as proof of a failed project. No. One wanted them to live, only each other. That night, they hid in a cave behind a waterfall. Vela sat near a small fire. David tended to her feet, wrapping cloth around the cuts. You didn't have to run, she said quietly. David looked up. I told you, I'm not leaving you. But now you've lost everything, she said. Your rank, your safety, your planet. He smiled a little. All that means nothing if I let you suffer. She was quiet. Then she asked, why are you like this? David leaned back, thinking. Maybe because I've seen too many good people get thrown away. I won't let that happen to you. Vela looked at him strangely. You really believe I'm good? I believe you're trying to be, he replied. That's more than most. She stared into the fire. You make me want to try harder. Far above, a ship flew past low and slow. Its scanners buzzed inside. The alien officer watched his screen. Heat signatures were faint, but he spotted 2 figures near the cave. Found them, he said coldly. Prepare to strike at dawn. As the sun rose, David and Vela continued their journey. The forest grew thicker. The trees had roots like arms. The fog curled around their legs. David stopped suddenly. Do you hear that? Vela turned. Engines. They looked up. A black drone dropped from the sky, landing in front of them like a metal wolf. Its red eyes blinked. It growled low, and Digital. Vela stepped forward. I'll handle it. Wait, David started. But Vela raised her hand. Her fingers trembled, but they glowed. The drone charged. Vela closed her eyes in the ground. Cracked vines shot from the earth, grabbing the drone's legs. It struggled, buzzing, trying to break free. Then boom. A second drone fired from behind a tree. The blast hit Vela hard. She flew back, hit a rock, and didn't move. David screamed her name and ran to her. Vela. Wake up. She groaned, barely conscious. The second drone aimed again. David stood up, rage boiling in his chest. He picked up a fallen blaster and fired once. Twice. The drone sparked and exploded into pieces. Smoke filled the air. David ran back to Vela, held her head in his hands. You're okay. You're okay, he whispered. I lost control, she said weakly. I couldn't stop it. You don't need to be perfect, he said. You just need to stay alive. Later, they reached the edge of the forest. Beyond it lay a mountain with glowing caves, places even alien soldiers feared. They won't follow us there, Vela said. But we won't come back either. David looked at the mountain, then at her. Then we go forward. Back at the base, the alien officer stared at the drone footage, watching Vela stop the first drone with her powers. She still has it, he muttered, even after all this time. A scientist stepped beside him. What do we do? He replied coldly. Send the Reaper squad. I want them both dead, before she remembers who she truly is. The wind stopped the moment they stepped into the valley, not slowed, stopped. No birds, no insects, no sounds. The air felt thick like walking through water. The sky turned a strange pale green above them. Even David, who wasn't sensitive to energy like Vela, felt a chill in his bones. Vela stood still, her eyes wide. This place remembers me, she whispered. David looked at her. You've been here before? She nodded slowly. Not in this body. Not like this, but yes, this is where it all began. They had reached the edge of a strange land known only by one name, the Forbidden Zone. Even the bravest alien soldiers avoided it. Even machines refused to work near it. People said the zone was cursed, haunted by ancient gods or failed science. To Vela, it was something worse. Familiar. The path was cracked and overgrown with glowing blue vines. Strange black stones rose from the ground like broken teeth. Some had symbols carved deep into them, symbols that pulsed when Vela walked by. David touched one stone. It was warm and vibrating. What is this place? He asked. Vela looked around, her face pale. I don't know the full truth. But I was brought here long ago, before the experiments. I was just a child, David frowned. You remember that far back? Only pieces, she said. Pain blurs memories. But something buried inside me knows this place. They kept walking. Soon, they reached a massive door carved into the side of a cliff. It was not metal. It looked like black crystal, and it hummed softly when they got near. Vela stepped forward. The door lit up with symbols, glowing brighter as she raised her hand. Without a touch, the door opened. A low breath of cold air rushed out from inside. It smelled like old-time dust and forgotten things. David followed her inside. The cave inside was large, almost like a cathedral. Strange machines sat on the sides, silent, ancient, half buried in rock. In the center of the chamber stood a tall pillar, and at the top floated a crystal orb. Vela stared at it. Her hands shook. I've seen that before, she said. In dreams, in nightmares. David moved carefully. What is it? I think it's the source of what they did to me, of what I became. She walked closer. The orb started spinning slowly, glowing with pale light. Images flickered around her. Holograms, pieces of memory. A young Vela, held down by alien scientists. Her screaming as energy poured into her body, her eyes changing. Her voice crying out for help. Then darkness. David watched in silence. His fists clenched. They made you a monster here, he said softly. Vela dropped to her knees. No, she whispered. They awoke something inside me. I wasn't created. Here, I was unlocked. David knelt beside her. What do you mean? I was born different, she said, tears falling. My parents knew. That's why they gave me to the Empire. They were afraid. The orb pulsed again. David stood up. If this thing is dangerous, we destroy it. But Vela shook her head. I don't think we can, and if I destroy it, I may die with it. David looked into her eyes. You don't have to choose alone. Vela looked back. But what if I'm not just someone who was hurt? What if I was made to be something terrible? David gently took her hand. Then, let me remind you, you're still someone worth saving. Suddenly, the orb flared bright red. A warning. Then a voice echoed through the cave. You were not supposed to return. Vela stood slowly. The voice was old, male, cold. David drew his blaster. Who said that? From the shadows, a figure stepped forward, tall, armored, faceless. Vela's eyes narrowed. I know that armor. That's the commander who ordered my transformation. David stepped in front of her. We're not here to fight. You came to the wrong place, human, the voice said. And she came home to die. David raised his weapon. Vela stepped beside him, her voice calm but strong. I'm not the same girl you tried to break. She opened her palm. Power crackled in the air. The voice of her past stood before her. But Vela wasn't a child anymore. She stepped forward slowly, eyes glowing faintly, and whispered, I remember your hands. You called it a gift, but you tore me apart. The armored figure didn't move. His voice was calm, cold. You were chosen, Vela. You are what the galaxy needs, a perfect weapon. David pointed his blaster at the figure. She's not yours anymore. The commander didn't flinch. She never stopped being mine. Vela's hands trembled. Not from fear, but from power building in her palms. And for the first time since her escape, she wondered if the monster inside her wanted to be free. The ancient cave around them shook lightly. The orb above the pillar spun faster, glowing red and white. It was reacting to her emotions, fear, rage, pain, and something deeper, conflict. David stepped beside her. You don't have to listen to him. But he's right about one thing, Vela said quietly. This place is part of me. And the longer I stay here, the more I feel it calling me back. David placed a hand on her shoulder. Then let's leave, now. Vela shook her head. I can't leave yet. I need to finish this. The commander raised a small device. It projected a new image, a young Vela, crying in a lab, calling for her mother. David looked away. He couldn't watch. Vela stared at it. Her eyes didn't blink. She cried, the commander said. She screamed, but then she became strong, stronger than anyone. That power still lives in you. You only have to say yes. Vela closed her eyes, and in her mind, she saw fire. She saw planets burning. She saw herself floating above battlefields, eyes glowing, hands dripping with power. And she whispered, what if I can't control it anymore? David heard her. You can, he said. Because you're not alone. You have me. Vela stepped toward the spinning orb. Each step made the ground shake harder. She reached out. Her hand hovered inches from the crystal. It glowed with ancient energy. It knew her. Then she placed her palm on it. The orb shattered not into pieces, but into light. The light shot into her chest, into her eyes, into her very soul. David shouted her name, but she didn't hear. She wasn't in the cave anymore. She stood in a dark place. No walls, no sky, just whispers. You were made to destroy. You were made to serve. You were made to suffer. And then her own voice said, no, I was made to choose. Back in the real world, Vela opened her eyes. They weren't glowing anymore. She looked at David. Then she looked at the commander. I don't want your power, she said. I don't want to be your weapon. She raised both hands, and from her body, light poured out. Not violent, not dark, but gentle. Worn. She was giving it up, letting go of the power that hurt her, changed her, and chained her. The ground cracked. The machines in the cave shut down forever. The commander screamed, no, you were mine. David raised his blaster and fired. The commander fell, silent. Vela dropped to her knees. David caught her. I'm here, he whispered. I gave it all up, she said weakly. I know, he said, holding her close. And that makes you stronger than ever. Hours later, the sun rose over the forbidden zone. Vela sat on a rock, weak but peaceful. The glow in her eyes was gone, but something brighter had replaced it. A soft smile. David joined her. You really did it, he said. You chose your own future. Vela looked up at the rising sun. No, she said. I chose my own soul. Far away, in a secret base, another screen lit up. A different voice spoke to someone hidden in shadow. She survived the release, the voice said, and she didn't keep the power. The shadow replied, then she's even more dangerous than before. She chose humanity. The crowd went silent the moment she stepped into the light. Gasps echoed through the great hall. Some backed away. Others stared in fear. Her feet were bare. Her robes were simple. Her hands were empty, but her eyes once glowing with power now held only peace. Vela, the monster, had returned. Not in chains, but by choice, and behind her walked the human who changed everything. David. Kane. The Galactic Peace Council had gathered for the first time in 10 years. Leaders from dozens of worlds, generals, scholars, even warlords had come to witness this strange moment. An alien girl, once called a monster, now asking for peace. Vela stood before them all, tall and calm. "I was created in shadows," she sighed, "but I'm choosing to live in light." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some didn't believe her. Others wanted proof. An old alien general stood up, angry. "You killed thousands during the rebellion. Why should we trust you now?" Vela didn't flinch. "I don't ask for trust," she said. "Only a chance." The general turned to David. "And you, human, why risk your life for her? What did you see that we didn't?" David stepped forward. Voice steady. "I saw someone hurting," he said. "Not a monster. Not a weapon. Just a girl who never had a choice." Outside the council chamber, armed guards waited. Their orders were clear. If Vela loses control, shoot. No warnings, but the girl who once shattered walls with her power now stood still, hands folded. No threats. No violence. Only honesty. Vela reached into her coat and pulled out the last piece of her old life, a broken metal cuff from her prison chains. She dropped it on the floor. "I keep this," she said softly, "not to remember pain, but to remember who I never want to be again." Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the room. Smoke poured from the back doors. An attacker rushed in masked, armed, shouting, "She tricked you. She's still dangerous." The attacker raised a blaster, but Vela didn't move. David did. He stepped in front of her, arms wide. "I won't let you hurt her." The attacker fired, one shot. Everyone gasped, but the blast never landed. The bullet hung in the air, frozen inches from David's chest. Not by power, but by a shield. One of the council members had activated emergency defenses. Guards tackled the attacker. The room fell silent again. The head counselor stood slowly. A wise old human woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. She looked at Vela for a long time. "Most beings," she said, "spend their lives running from who they are. You walked straight into the fire and left it behind." She looked at the other leaders. "It's time we ask ourselves, who is more human? One who chooses fear, or one who chooses mercy?" The room was quiet. Then, slowly, one by one, representatives stood and nodded. A new decision was made. Vela would live. Freely, openly, without chains. Outside, under the sky, Vela breathed in the cool wind. David stood beside her. "It's over," he said. "No," she replied. "It's just beginning." He smiled. "What will you do now?" She looked up at the stars. "I want to help others like me, those still in cages, those still in pain." "And me?" David asked. Vela took his hand. "You're coming with me. You touched the monster and saw a soul. Now help me remind others that monsters can heal too." The news spread across the galaxy. The girl once feared was now called the Brave One. And the human who stood by her? They called him the one who touched the monster and found her heart.